our yearbook was dedicated to our former principal, Mr. J.T. Davidson, whom died tragically in a traffic accident. His tragic death will never be forgotten. His memory will go on for those that knew him for his dedication to our school and helping our students achieve their goals. Co-editors of the 1973 Rebel: Susan Kemp and Philip McGinnis, and advisor, Mrs. Madge Kamen. Senior class editors: Sarita Jameson, Beverly Taylor, Cecilia Thomas, Pam Bailey, Sandy Goad, Dolores Hughes, Jennifer McGraw, and Vicki Steele. Principal, Mr. C.C. Phillips. Junior, Assistant Principal and Guidance Counselor, Mr. Bob Staten. Secretary, Mrs. Wanda Humphreys. Teachers: Mrs. Joy Mayberry, Mrs. Janet Shutt, Mrs. Virginia Cook, Mr. Bill Murphy, Mrs. Madge Kamen, Mr. Earl Cook, Mrs. Shirley Phillips, Mrs. Maud Canterbury, Miss Alice Hypes, Mr. Don Knuckles, Mr. Edsel Lafferty, Miss Carol Folkelsong, Mr. Leonard Valentine, Mrs. Donna Lusk, Mr. Bob Wiley, Miss Carla Debord, Miss Vicki Kirby, Mrs. Peggy Kemp, Mr. Jim McNeish, Mr. Ernest Ramsey, Mrs. Peggy Wilcox, Mrs. Kulke. Our basketball team beat Bailey'sville, 92-53, and Oceana, 61-56, in the sectional tournament. We beat Sophia, 58-47, but lost to Gary, 54-53. We were 1 point away from playing in the state tournament. Our senior basketball players were Bill Mizell, Rick Hypes, Eddie Allen, and Clarence Mizell. Our football team under Coach Jim McNeish had a successful season with an 8-2 record. Our loss to Peterstown eliminated us from the playoffs. Our senior players were Benny Saunders, Stanley Presley, and Steve Sutton, David Stover, Gary Wilcox, and John Pettis, Dave Harsh, Delbert Dalton, Larry Stewart, William Fralin, Tony Flame, Mitchell Valentine, and Andy Grogg. Our wrestling team, under the direction of coaches, Mr. Earl Cook and Mr. Bob Wiley. Senior letterman, David Harsh, Tony Holdsclaw, Doug Accord, Gary Naylor and Larry Stewart. Cheerleaders. Sponsors Mrs. Peggy Kemp and Mrs. Janet Shutt. Co-head cheerleaders, Robin Pryor, Mary Jo Huffman. Cheerleaders, Teresa Hawkins, Dolores Hughes, Sunny Sue Phillips, Robin McKinney, Teresa Campbell, and Karen Mullens. The Mullens High School Band, under band director, Carla Debord, performed at football games, homecoming, and several pep rallies. They marched during Labor Day, Christmas, and all area parades. Our high school band presented a Christmas and spring concert. They participated in all area and all county band activities. The band did fundraisers, selling candy, fruit cakes, candles, and sponsored 2 harvest festivals to raise money for new uniforms. Majorettes and Flag Girls: Teresa Newsom, Patty Lusk, Debbie Bailey, Jeannie Hendricks, Teresa Thomas, and Regina Gaines. Homecoming Queen: Mary Jo Huffman, her court, Teresa Campbell, Tiana Trent, Tina Flame, and Cheryl Rhodes. Varsity Queen: Beverly Brem, Her Court, Regina Gaines, Debbie England, Cheryl Liuzzo, and Becky Musser. Our 1973 graduates: Doug Accord, Jacqueline Alberti, Eddie Allen, Pam Bailey, Rita Bartley, Gary Blankenship, Herb Blankenship, Pat Blevins, Donna Booth, Gary Bowling, Beverly Brem, Diane Brooks, Mark Browning, Danny Bird, Mark Calfee, Debbie Castell, Charlene Cook, Annie Cooper, Delbert Dalton, Melanie Dalton, Mike Davis, Debbie England, Tony Flame, William Fralin, Ricky Fry, Ronnie Fry, Pat Fuller, Regina Gaines, Sandy Goad, Diana Graham, Andy Grogg, Eddie Halcomb, Sherry Hall, Janice Harris, David Harsh, Teresa Hawkins, Connie Hess, Connie Highlander, David Halston, Mary Jo Huffman, Dolores Hughes, Ricky Hypes, Sarita Jameson, Terry Jeffcoat, Jonathan Jenkins, Ann Johnson, Vicki Jones, Susan Kemp, Jeannie Kirk, Lorenza Kyle, Debbie Ladd-Dusher, Rita Lambert, Devin Lane, Karen Lilly, Sandy Lopez, Patty Lusk, Philip McGinnis, Jennifer McGraw, Becky McKinney, Clifford McKinney, Kenny McKinney, Mary McKinney, Clayton Meadows, Bill Mizell, Patricia Mizell, Gary Naylor, Pam Parks, Kenny Parnell, Johnny Patrick, John Petties, Bob Phillips, Stanley Presley, Hugh Price, Robin Pryor, Rebecca Pugh, Brenda Ratliff, Cheryl Rhodes, David Roach, Mike Runyon, Benny Saunders, Diana Scott, Debbie Simones, Jonathan Shirley, Alvin Shrewsbury, Jane Shrewsbury, Harold Simmons, Gwen Smith, Terry Smith, Louise Solomon, Jack Staten, Vicky Steele, Joyce Stevens, Larry Stewart, David Stover, Debbie Stover, Steve Sutphin, Beverly Taylor, Sharon Tennant, Cecilia Thomas, Debbie Thompson, Jimmy Tice, Joyce Tilley, Delilah Tolliver, Tiana Trent, Mitchell Valentine, Donnie Vickers, Carl Walls, Teresa White, Gary Wilcox, Kenny Wilson, Mike Witt, Brenda Wolf, Brenda Wooding,